It's the Cool Kids Club. You've been invited to the Cool Kids Club. It's so exciting, yeah. Justin likes monsters, yeah. And Amy likes words in the Cool Kids Club. Cool Kids Club.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Cool Kids Club podcast. This is episode number 83, and I am one of your hosts, Justin. I may go by the J-ster today, and I'll explain that in a moment.
Oh, the J-ster.
The J-ster. But before we get into that, who are you?
Oh, well, I'm Amy, your sister.
Oh, hello.
Of almost your whole life.
Enough of it.
As we've discussed, you did have a few blissful years.
Yep.
Before I arrived on the scene. Those don't matter.
They mattered to me. But what really matters is that it's not just two hosts today.
No, it's three. It doesn't have the same ring to it.
No, it doesn't. We have a very special guest. I can't believe this is the first time he is coming on the podcast because there's only probably... really maybe one person I've done more podcasts with than you, Amy, and that is our guest today, Eddie. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, I've only got one thing to say. Oh. This podcast needs an enema.
Oh, yes. and so it begins.
We're jumping right on in.
I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this for a while.
Yeah, let's just dive into it. Our topic today is the word movie club is back. This is the summertime movie club. This is our summertime movie club, and there is, I don't think, a bigger summer movie in this era of the late 80s, early 90s that we typically talk about than Batman, 1989. And when I knew we were going to do Batman 1989, and then I realized, A, it's a movie we haven't done yet. B, it's the 35th anniversary next week as we record this.
Yeah.
So perfect timing. And then I was like, well, we have to have Eddie on the show. Like, there's no other person I would want to be a guest on this particular episode than you, Eddie. Welcome.
I really appreciate that. This is, like we've talked about a million times, one of my favorite movies of all time. It holds a special place in my heart. There's just, there's something that doesn't quite hit nostalgically like anything else, like Batman 89. It has this flavor to it, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And that was a crazy year for movies in general. Like,
it was. 89 was a huge year for movies.
And just, like, think of this. Like, we talk about this movie, so, like, we're about to talk this movie up, right? Like, if you haven't seen this movie, we're probably going to ruin it for you. No, we're not. Sure. It's as good as we're saying it's going to be. But
impossible. Can't be ruined.
In that year, okay.
Can't be hyped enough.
In 1989, here are the movies that came out, okay? But Batman 89 is the one that, like, you had to be there to know how big it was. Like, stores were plastered in bat this, bat that. Like,
it was like when Star Wars. It was like Star Wars. It was like when Marvel was at its biggest. I mean,
it was
Harry
bat
Potter.
Everything. Everything was branded. They had everything, and this was like at a time when like merchandising
Bat-Mania,
like that was
you
really
might say?
Exactly, and merchandising was like crazy. So here are the movies that came out that year. And I'm just gonna name some big ones: Ghostbusters 2, Back to the Future 2, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Dead Poets Society, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, The Burbs, Major League, Say Anything.
What a year. Oh, you're still going. Jesus.
Oh, I'm still going. Pet Sematary, See No Evil, Hear No Evil. That's a favorite of mine.
I like that one as well.
And you can say what you will about it, but Silver was in this movie. The Karate Kid Part 3, Lethal Weapon Part 2, When Harry Met Sally, Turner and Hooch, The Abyss, Uncle Buck, Little Monsters, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Driving Miss Daisy, The Wizard, Tango and Cash, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say UHF.
Oh, well, yes. You saved the best for last with UHF.
So my point being just like, out of all of that, there's a lot of stuff that's like real zeitgeist stuff, I feel like. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, very much.
Batman.
Stuff that 35 years later is still very much talked about.
but maybe none more than Batman 89. And I think that says something where it stands amongst its peers of a crazy packed year.
It's interesting too because it feels to me so of that time, but it's also the whole thing is basically a throwback, like it's a noir movie, you know, so it doesn't really feel like 1989, it feels like the 40s, you know, or the 30s.
It does, but it also doesn't.
Yeah.
Like that's something that's special about this Batman of this age, and maybe even Batman the animated series, is like, when does this take place?
Yeah, it's kind of outside of time. It's like, what year is this supposed to be?
Yeah, real anachronism. It's like the whole film.
Like it's like you go and Batman's got the Batcave, but you go to the newspaper office and everyone's like typing on old timey typewriters, and you know, like no one's got a computer in the office. And I'm like, 1989, they had computers. I'd say a lot of offices, especially a giant New York City newspaper.
I mean, Batman had one with like 30 screens. Like, so we do know screens exist. We do know TV exists.
Yeah, so it's
but for some reason television. Not computers.
So we're got to be like at least the 50s. But yeah, like,
and then the cars.
Oh yeah, the cars
too.
Yeah.
It's like
and how everyone dresses. Like the Joker, Jack Nicholson. I mean, he dresses like a gangster. Like what you think of when you think of like the Godfather mobster.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, he was a gangster.
Is literally a gangster. Oh,
yeah.
God. It's so good.
Is this Jack Nicholson's best performance?
Oh,
or is that The Shining?
That's a tough question because you talk about,
or is it Wolf?
Shit! Oh damn! I forgot.
Just
about
throwing
Wolf.
These out here, guys.
I forgot about Wolf.
You know,
it's hard. It would be
if
hard
you
to
said
say
it
Jack
was
Nicholson's best performance because he's got so many wonderful ones.
If you said it was, though, and you argued it was, I wouldn't argue against it.
Yeah, I think there's an argument that it is. Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, out of ones that I think that maybe, like, left him on the map with, like, a bigger, like, core audience, it's definitely Batman. Like, for that age. More people were exposed to Batman than I would say, like, any of his other movies. Yeah. Just, like, because The Shining's not going to be for everybody. Like, even though I think The Shining's a masterpiece.
2.5 hour long, slow burn Kubrick film is not for everyone. You know what?
Yeah.
It should be. If it's not for you, then...
It's for everyone I want in my life.
I think I would like you better if it was
I'll accept it's not for children. But once you reach a certain age, if that movie's not for you, then that's your problem.
Yeah. And Jack Nicholson just he naturally sort of looks like... He looks like a crazy person. That's why it works so well in The Shining.
I've always maintained
he gets the eyebrows going and the forehead and the smile and the eyes.
Yeah,
he has a very expressive face.
Yes, yeah.
I have always
which lends it. The lines lend it to like comic lines too. I feel like, especially with the prosthesis and with the smile. But even before, like his nerves go completely seven. Like his face is very expressive already. So you see, these are the tools that they have to work with here.
These are the tools I have to work with. I actually put a specific note in here to talk about that scene. So this is we're all fucking over the place this episode.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't really care. The scene where after Jack Napier, Jack Nicholson falls into the vat of chemicals at Axis, but he survives, and he has this like underground back alley plastic surgery emergency procedure done with a doctor who clearly is supposed to be like a Nazi, right? Like that's kind of the implication is.
I guess
this is an old Nazi doctor who.
Well, this is essentially 1943, so that.
Right.
I
never read that into it, but maybe.
I think he's got he's got the comic German accent.
Why would he?
These are the tools I have to work with.
Now's the time on sprockets.
Now's the time on sprockets when we dance.
Yeah.
But I think who are you gonna get?
Jack doesn't kill
old
him.
Guy. Let's say that's in the 80s. The age lines up, An old guy.
He's an old Nazi. Yeah,
he's an old Nazi who's in hiding and amongst other criminals, and he's like one of the guys that the criminal underworld can call up to do their back alley clown surgery.
Yeah, where else is this Nazi doctor going to get to practice if not? Yeah. They're not letting him, at Johns Hopkins.
No,
he's a fucking Nazi.
Back alley. Back alley clown surgery is the name of my next rap record.
It's a shame we don't name
really
these episodes like
clown rap.
You and I would name Blue Bard Cage episodes, because this one would be back alley clown surgery. I should mention Eddie is one of my co-hosts and one of the founders of Blue Bard Cage, so he and I have talked a lot about wrestling over the years.
It'll be back soon, I think. Yes. But yeah, probably not good for SEO naming your podcast Back Alley Clown Surgery. It's like, what the hell am I listening to here?
Look,
I think it's never too late.
What kind of
have
kink is this?
Subtitles of like Batman '89 :
Back Alley.
Back Alley Clown
Surgery.
It'll be like A New Hope, like they'll just slap it on there. Years down the road, it's like, that's essentially what this was about.
Always called this. You were misremembering. Anyway.
Yeah, I love that scene though. Just like when he's like,
the Back Alley Clown Surgery scene terrified me as a kid. I literally I loved this movie and I would watch it over and over. But that scene, I remember I would get behind a chair. I would hide from the TV. It was that and the scene where he gets his tongue stuck to the pole in Christmas Story.
Yep.
Those were the two that for some reason really upset me. Really,
and it's like you knew it was coming.
You knew it was coming, and I just wanted to get past it so that I could settle in for the rest of the movie. Because that scene was so scary to me. Him laughing, him just lumbering up the steps.
It's terrifying, Justin. I'm sure I was 10 when I first saw it, and I still thought it was scary because I'm a baby.
So I've recently found out I have this thing, and I think I can blame it on my parents never really giving me any guidelines to what I could and couldn't watch as a kid.
Sure.
Let me give a little context. The second movie I ever saw in theaters, and this was during its initial run, was Die Hard.
Sure.
Okay.
So there's a line there. There's a lot of stuff that happens. You know what I mean? There's
so
a lot of
how old
murders.
would this have put you? You think?
I was 4.5.
4.5. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty young.
And I remember being in the theater. Yeah. I watched RoboCop when it came out.
Oh my, RoboCop is even worse.
I was watching in the 80s, so I was no older than 5, right? I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff. So talking to my partner Kim and her cousin, because she lives in the same neighborhood, so she comes over and watches movies and stuff sometimes. Apparently, I just don't have any fear from movies where some people do. They never got freaked out. I never got freaked out as a kid. Yeah.
But it probably says a lot about me as a person.
Even
when you
I'm
saw
finding
that
out
on
like
Elm Street,
this
at the time, you didn't think this is scaring me. It just didn't happen.
No, I was just like, dude, that's cool.
Fucking murdering bitches. That's awesome.
I don't know why. I think maybe because I was exposed to it from probably since I was alive.
Never weren't. You were like, this is normal.
Yeah, but I was also kind of realistic about things, right? I remember we were watching
this. What you knew this was a movie, and this was not real.
Yeah,
you could compartmentalize.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah, maybe I've got some sort of autism or something, but maybe
psychopath, but.
Or maybe that too. You'll have to ask Justin.
Did you go through a killing animals phase when you were in your teens?
No, I didn't.
Just making sure.
But I guess that also put this in frame. I remember we were watching a newscast once when I was not older than 5 because we were in the old house that my parents lived in, and there was this kid on the news that had gotten hurt because he jumped off his porch. He had a towel tied around his.
Slow news day.
Yeah, apparently. But apparently, there was, a lot of kids were doing this, I guess. But he had, a towel tied around his neck and, thought he could fly or whatever. And I just, looked at my parents. I was like, people can't fly? It's and I was just like, what?
You're like, look at this fucking guy.
Look at this
it's this guy over here.
This fucking guy.
But he's honestly ruining it for all of us. Like, now they're not going to let me out on the porch by myself.
Like, Batman's just a movie, right? Like, you can't actually do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. Now, I mean, it'd be badass if you could.
Now, Eddie, are you a little older than Justin, or are you the same age, or...
I think I'm a little older.
So did you go see Batman 89 in theaters?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I remember the day like it was yesterday.
Tell us about it.
Tell us about it.
Tell us about it, Eddie.
What did the movie theater smell like? What did the carpet look like?
Carpet and popcorn.
Okay, so
Shut up.
my parents weren't loaded or anything. Like we were probably like lower middle, like when I was growing up for the most part, like especially at this time. So like I remember everybody we had just moved in. Like 1989 was also a big year for me. My sister was born that year. Like a little while after this movie came out, my parents moved into the house that was like my childhood home. So like we'd re-stain the deck outside and like this like very red stain. If you know the one I'm talking about, that's just like a very red.
Is this gonna end with you trying to jump off that deck?
No, okay. But my dad did once dress like Batman, which is hilarious. But anyway, we all kind of got dressed up or whatever, like in like nicer clothes, and like because we didn't go to the theater all the time, and like we took pictures on this deck. We just built like a wooden picnic table on it too, and it's staying the same color. And like we all just like had these pictures, and I'm gonna try to find them, like taking pictures in it, and then we went to the Fort Henry Mall.
Oh yeah.
And I just remember like being in line and just being like staring straight ahead. I was like, it's finally.
I'm imagining you all are dressed like Batman's parents going to the like you said, you just put on like your nicest clothes.
Pearls.
Like it's just a fur coat and you're just walking into the. You're like, we didn't go to the movies very often, so when we did, we really dressed to the nines.
It felt
and
like
left
that.
through
Like
a back
and
alley.
Your dad has like on a top hat and tails.
I would love to see my dad in top hat and tails. That would make my year. But I remember this was in the Fort Henry Mall. And then like right like near where the movie theater is at there used to be I'm pretty sure that's where it was at. But it was in the lower level. There was like a drugstore you could go in. It was just like a Revco or something. Might have actually been a Revco, but we went in there and like got some snacks and like put on my mom's purse because we weren't paying those theater prices, you know. Yeah. But I did get a sweet Ghostbusters 2 AMC glow in the dark cup. I didn't get it at Ghostbusters 2. I actually got it here because I was like, oh, that's sweet too. They didn't have no Batman cups. So.
Wow.
But yeah, I just remember and just like I didn't move that whole time. Like I was just like glued on it. Like I was like, I'm etching this into my memory. I'm etching this into my memory and saving it because I have no idea when I'm going to get to see it again because there was no way they were going to take me twice.
Sure, yeah.
No. And back then, yeah, it was like, when am I ever going to see this again? Maybe when it comes to home video.
This was actually first... you kind of before this in the 80s, home video was obviously a thing. But, like, people mostly rented things as opposed to buying them because tapes were so expensive. I mean, if you go look at a lot of ads, I mean, it was $70, $80 for one movie. And that's in 80s dollars.
Yeah, and still some of them, after you started getting more home releases, too, like, there's other movies that didn't get, like, mass productions of tapes. I remember like going to Video Magic and looking at one of they'd have the booklets of like the things that are to come.
Oh my god.
They'd also have the prices for them. And it was like for a copy of Dumb and Dumber when it came out it was like $99. I was like, why?
Worth every cent.
Well, sure.
And I was like, because I was all the time in Video Magic and Gray. And I was always just like talking to the lady. I was like, her name was Rita. I was like, $99?
You're like, I'm going to have to start saving yesterday.
Exactly, because I did want it.
Well, of course you did.
But
You're like, Mom, can we up my allowance? Dumb and Dumber is $99, and I've got to save.
This is important.
This is important stuff.
But this was the first movie that they made a big point out of making it $25.
Really?
Which at the time was super, super cheap. And so I think that kind of, it already was such a huge pop culture phenomenon, but like everybody fucking had this movie. Because it was like, you know, I mean, that's the first time you could ever go to a store and buy a big blockbuster movie like that to keep for, you know, a price that's not gonna, you know, break the bank. Yeah. So everybody had a copy of Batman.
And honestly, it's still my preferred way to watch it, because it's closer to the theater experience.
You get the Pepsi commercial, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't remember if the Pepsi commercial or the Coke commercial Diet Coke commercial was in the theater, but I do remember the Warner Brothers catalog piece was in the theater showing. Oh. Like, I'm almost certain. I was like 5 at the time, but like I'm almost certain that it was there.
I wish I remembered anything from when I was 5 as well as you remember going to see Batman '89.
I have a weird memory. It's full of useless things. It was.
Well, let's talk a little bit. I mean, I know we've like jumped right in, but for anyone who possibly does not know about Batman '89, this was not Tim Burton's first movie.
They've not made it this far into the podcast if they don't even know what we're talking about, probably.
This was not Tim Burton's first directorial movie, but his second?
Not the first Tim Burton movie that we've covered on this show, because we've covered his first movie, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
That's right.
His second movie, which we've not done an episode on, but surely we will at some point. His second movie is Beetlejuice.
Oh, right. That was
Beetlejuice is really what got him the Batman job.
I see.
They have been trying to... This was not an era where we had... Like, superhero movies weren't a genre. Mm-mm. You know? I mean, you had the Superman movies in the 70s, which had, after the second one, devolved into terrible sequels.
And even the original cut of the second one, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, they're fine.
And I mean, Batman was that silly show, you know, everybody thought Batman was the show from the 60s.
When most people thought Batman, they thought the show.
They thought, pow, you know, ka-chow or whatever. Ka-chow, that's Lightning McQueen. But, you know what I mean. That's what most people thought. Mm-hmm.
They thought of Lightning McQueen, an anthropomorphic car that didn't exist yet, and the TV show from the 60s.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
The Light Night.
Yeah.
There was... So this was going back as far as 1983. There was a... Well, actually, it goes back earlier than that, but there was an actual script and play in 1983 that, like, had people kind of attached to it called The Batman. And it was actually advertised for a 1985 release. Of course, none of this ever happened. But we had... I wanted to real quick... because I love stuff like this. I love like what
almost was,
like, who almost directed this or who almost acted in this.
I do too. I love that shit.
Ivan Reitman was attached to it.
Sure.
Joe Dante, which I would definitely see a Joe Dante Batman movie, and Wes Craven. Wes Craven's Batman.
Yeah, what would that have been like?
Look, and I'm a big Wes Craven fan, but I'll even say Wes Craven is hit or miss. And I don't know. I don't know if Wes Craven would have the bat sensibilities, but maybe.
I think he'd go dark with it at least. He wouldn't go down the camp route, which would have been a mistake.
Go dark with it, yeah.
He wouldn't have pulled a Joel Schumacher.
So I think it's interesting that the comic fans, the Batman purists, you know, the ones who think about more than just the TV show in the 80s when Batman comes up, they get the news that Jack Nicholson is going to play the Joker. Honestly, everyone's thumbs up from that. Of course, famously, Robin Williams lobbied really hard to...
he was actually promised the role, from what I've heard.
Really?
And they used him as kind of like bait to get Jack to agree to it. So after Robin had agreed to it in principle, Jack heard about it. They used that to get him over, and after that, Robin Williams didn't ever want to do a Warner Brothers or like a superhero or a Batman movie again, because they wanted him to be the Riddler later on. But until they gave him an apology, he was never going to work with them again because of that. At least that's what I read.
Yeah.
Whether that's
I also read that of the people who auditioned, there were a lot of people who auditioned and were considered for Joker. I think Jack Nicholson was always their top choice, from what it sounds like. But
I mean,
I thought it was.
He may actually be the Joker.
He's as close as you're gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Willem Dafoe is also like in the running as well.
Yes, he was. John Lithgow. John Lithgow Joker.
I'm trying to think of like what that the shape of his melon.
He's got a
with
big
Joker
old melon
face on it.
Yeah, he's got a long he's got too like oval of a face.
He's a great actor. I just don't know about the look.
And he's chilling. We've all seen Dexter.
Tremendous actor.
But yeah.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Cliffhanger. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great in Dexter too.
Harry and the Hendersons.
I don't want to talk about Harry and the Hendersons. It makes me really upset.
that whole movie upsets me.
It terribly. Oh God! Let's move past it.
It is a good movie.
It's sad.
So in the late 80s, you had two very successful and very dark Batman stories that were published that sort of reignited everyone's interest in Batman, and it reignited Warner Brothers' interest in doing a Batman movie. But these were, I feel, and I'm not a comic book guy, so you feel free to correct me, Andy, but I feel like these were the biggest Batman stories that had come out in a long time, like as far as popularity goes.
And you're talking about The Killing Joke and The Dark Knight Returns?
Correct,
yeah. It definitely took Batman down a different angle, or down a different road than he'd been in a long time, and really kind of mixed it, especially The Dark Knight Returns, like with kind of like Reagan era propaganda politics.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the stuff you would see in like RoboCop or something like that, there's kind of panels throughout like that comic with some of those talking head things. So it gets like kind of into the zeitgeist at the time, the things that were kind of like going on, and really took Batman down a gritty angle. And then with The Killing Joke is just like a one-shot comic book. It's not even that long. They made a really awful animated movie about it where they added on like
I didn't even watch
that
that
really
because
weird.
I heard that they changed a bunch of stuff. Because that
just take the beginning off.
Such a great singular story.
Yeah. If you take the beginning, the stuff that they added at the very beginning off to make it a longer feature, it's mostly fine. But all the stuff they added was disgusting. And The Killing Joke really put the Joker back in perspective. Like he had already started changing like into like the Joker we know now. Back when like Neil Adams was doing his initial run there, you've got that famous like Joker's face up in the sky with the playing card cover that was kind of like the relaunch of the Joker into like the psychotic, not kind of campy version from like the Golden Ages. And he kept getting darker and darker, but by that time, when you paralyze Batgirl and it's canon, and everything else that happens in that comic that I won't get into here, it really it put Joker as like one of the tippy top villains at the time, just because he was out there.
Do you think that this would have because like what you're saying, the Joker was had sort of risen to the top as like maybe the most like evil or whatever villain at this time? Like, do you think Batman 89 would have been as successful if they'd chosen a different villain?
I don't think so. I think just the look and the aesthetic of that movie, the Joker is so like tied into it.
It is very like 40s.
And honestly, like I think that Nicholson and his performance as the Joker steals the whole movie. And that's not taking anything away from Michael Keaton or Kim Basinger or anyone else But this movie's about him as the Joker. Like, that is by far the most engaging thing. Like, when he's on screen, like, you can't take your eyes off of him. And sorry. Go ahead.
And I think that says a lot about the character too. Like, to play devil's advocate, because this is my favorite Batman movie, but there is also the best Batman movie, and that's The Dark Knight, right?
We can argue. Hard to argue.
Like, people can argue about it, but I think really when you think of film and like really being like the best film, it is Heath Ledger as Joker. I think with the Joker, when done well, Heath Ledger's Joker is only in that movie like a finite amount of time, and he also stole like
Correct.
everything with it. Like, he chewed scenery when he was there, and it was so good.
Yeah. He's the reason that movie has become such a part of our cultural awareness. Why it's remembered so fondly. It's because of, and again, not to take anything away from anyone else who worked on and created that movie.
Right.
That's like,
some people are just so good of an actor or just so good in a role that they can't help but just like
exactly. And I think it's the combo of a amazing role and like the right actor, because we've seen after this other people do it.
Yeah.
And they either think they knew better or
they're always trying to recapture that.
Didn't get it.
Because and Jack Nicholson's Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker are, clearly similar in some ways, but they're done very, very differently, and stylistically those movies are completely different. Like, Batman 89 is a blockbuster movie, and The Dark Knight feels like it's a Christopher Nolan film. So they're different. You know what I mean? Like, and one is not better than the other. I see what you're saying is like, you could study it as, in a film class, but like, one's not better than the other, but
exactly.
Aside from those, I think people can regard those two interpretations as like equal or just as good because they are different enough. And I think that since Heath Ledger's Joker, I think we're always trying to like, or The Dark Knight in general, we keep trying to recapture how good that movie was and how much everybody loved it and how good that Joker was. And it's kind of like, it's okay to just maybe do your own, like, do a different thing. Like, that's fine. We don't have to.
That's
like,
the
Heath Ledger's Joker is, like I said, I don't think it's better or worse than Jack Nicholson's. It's just different. And I think it's probably more highly regarded. Maybe, by, like, moviegoers. But it
is, but there's a reason. Yeah. And like you were asking about, to go back to the initial question, Charlie, this is a total circuitous way to get there, but like, would this movie has been as good without him, the Joker? Yeah. There's a reason the two best Batman movies are Batman 89 and The Dark Knight. Yeah.
That dynamic between those two characters and like that being I think is just like, I think even if you're a very, very, very casual Batman fan or comic fan, which I would say would be me, like, you're going to know Batman and the Joker. You're going to know that general story. Is it because it's been done a lot in pop culture? Probably. But, like, I think that feels like his, like, number one nemesis over any other villain.
No doubt.
So, like, I think you just can't, like you said, there's a reason those are the best.
Anytime they're together on screen and done well.
Yeah.
Like, and especially here in Batman 89, the visual differences between Batman and the very dark black and little splashes of yellow, and then this just very, very vibrant violet, and the white makeup they did on him. That
when they show his face with the prosthetic but without the makeup, it's so
when
disgusting.
The Joker has his skin color.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's when it is. It's when he has his skin color.
It took me so long to get that,
I didn't understand.
That's what it is.
So long
yes.
to
What
get
is
that.
happening when it starts
Thank
melting?
you. Yes.
He has his skin makeup on.
I'm glad I was the only one.
It's so disgusting.
In the museum when she throws the water in his face.
Yes.
And he acts like he's like,
Can we talk about the scene in the museum?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Can we talk about Party Man? So I think I was kind of talking to Eddie about this earlier. Fucking every line in this movie is a zinger, and I kept trying to think of like, what are some of my favorite lines, and I really can't narrow it down because everything that comes out of Jack Nicholson's mouth in this movie is gold. And then you have the I would say underutilized, but his purpose is to die, so he was never like that's. I get it. Jack Palance as Carl Grissom, the mob.
Everything he says, though, quotable.
Everything he says, gold.
Yeah.
Your life won't be worth piss.
You are my number one guy.
Have you ever done that to your friends?
You're
Like
my
when
number
they're
one
leaving?
guy.
Yeah.
Oh, like,
He does it a lot. He does it a lot, Eddie.
Most of my friends.
All the time.
I've
If
probably
I have a
done
deck
it
of
to
cards,
you. Yeah.
If I have a deck of cards and you have a hat, all the better. I
Which
know what
is
I'm doing.
most of the time I'm just carrying around ready to do magic tricks.
Now, I am trying to remember. So Billy D. Williams is Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
Of course, will go on to be Two-Face. Do you think there was a plan to do that in like a second movie, and it just didn't happen? Okay.
He was signed on
Because I mean, that's a pretty big name to be playing a character who's not the main villain.
Plan,
okay.
Was that Billy D. Williams was going to become Two-Face eventually? I think
It was written into his contract that like if that villain was to be on screen, he would be the one.
And I think he was
Interesting.
very, very disappointed when everything got switched up between Returns and Forever, and the new director came in and a whole new everything, and Tommy Lee Jones got that part. I hate that we never got to see Billy D. Williams Two-Face. That would have been
He
something.
did get paid for it though.
Well, good for,
He did get paid
him.
for it?
Yeah.
I love Billy D. Williams.
And he's in the
very,
comics.
very smooth. But
I was gonna say, I feel like he's a very smooth Two-Face.
very smooth
Very
Two-Face.
smooth voice.
Drinking a Colt 45.
Yeah, I don't know how I would have. I mean, I'll be honest, I've not really seen Billy D. Williams in anything aside from this and Star Wars movies. But I don't know how I would feel about him as Two-Face.
You can see it in the Batman '89 comic series that started a few years ago. They kind of give you that what if scenario of it. You also get the Robin what if scenario that was rumored to be cast back then.
Well, yeah, because we should mention, like, basically up until pretty much the last iteration of the script, Robin was supposed to be in this movie.
Really?
Yeah, like he got cut.
And who was it supposed to be?
I don't think it was cast. I don't think they had.
Rumor was Marlon Wayans.
There were a couple of people rumored. But yeah, I can't. Yeah,
that was a big one.
so.
He would have been pretty young at the time.
They were gonna go. It was gonna be like a.
There was also a version of this movie.
That was the idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's.
And I think there was a version of the movie that was like Bill Murray's Batman and Eddie Murphy as Robin.
Yeah. I think that was.
I don't love that.
I can get behind Eddie Murphy as Robin, as long as he doesn't in any way try to act like Robin and just acts like himself, like just talking in the Eddie Murphy voice and saying Eddie Murphy things.
I imagine Bill Murray's Batman would be something like the old Batman serials, basically.
That would have been a good, like, he would have been like a good Adam West heir, but not a serious Batman.
But this could have kept him from going on to make What About Bob, and I need that movie to exist. So
That's true. I think everything
movie club
worked out. I think everything.
And I'm just gonna say it, and I know it's hotly debated. My Batman is Michael Keaton.
Yes.
And he always will be.
I think it's interesting that the loyalists, the comic nerds, the Batman purists, were not at all happy with the choice of either of Tim Burton as the director or Michael Keaton as.
Well, what had
Batman.
Michael Keaton like? I don't remember like
Michael
what he did
Keaton
after
was
this.
known
Like, what had he
for-
done before this?
Michael Keaton was known for comedies, kind of like in the vein of like how Tom Hanks was in the '80s.
Okay.
So kind of like, the Night Shift. What else?
Okay.
What else is coming
Mr.
out?
Mom.
Mr. Mom.
Well, I'm trying to remember like which of those was before this. Yeah.
Well, he did Beetlejuice, and he did this other more serious movie.
Oh yeah, duh.
What was it called?
He did Pacific Heights.
There was something. There was like Beetlejuice.
That might have been after Batman.
He had like back-to-back movies, and one of them I can't remember the name of it because I'm having a mind fart. And then there was Beetlejuice, which is basically the reason the studio agreed with Tim Burton and let him have it, because the movie had gotten delayed so much, and they're like, okay, if you believe in the guy, we believe in him. It looks like he's a bankable guy, so I'm getting cast. But yeah, people were apparently mad about it. I don't remember any of that at the time. Of course, I couldn't really read that well.
Sure.
So
and the news was covering kids jumping off porches. They weren't really covering stuff like who was mad about casting.
WCYB.
I think it's interesting because we saw it happen again, going back to The Dark Knight, with the outrage when Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker, and now that as we've already discussed, one of the most iconic roles ever in superhero movies, and now no one questions Michael Keaton as Batman. Like, for our generation, like, that's our Batman. No. Like, it's him, and it's the animated series. It's it's Kevin Conroy.
I think the Ledger thing was because of the picture. If they had released a different picture of him, because it was just like you couldn't even see his hair if it was green, and you just saw kind of the scars and the thing. Couldn't really tell what it looked like fully formed. I think they left a little bit too much up to imagination for nerds. And then I think comic nerds sometimes get it right. Like then we had the Juggaletto picture, and everybody immediately was just like went into panic mode, and well, here we are. Some things are just bad. But sometimes people overreact. And I think they did with Keaton, because Keaton's Bruce Wayne makes his Batman, in my opinion.
Yeah. I love how, Batman, he's an average-looking guy. Like, he's of an average build. He's not a super jacked guy. He just... Yeah. Michael Keaton's a very... he's a normal-looking dude.
Can you tell me which one of these guys is Bruce Wayne?
I'm not sure. Oh. Hey, just tell me about some of your favorite scenes, because I really can't narrow it down. I just want to hear. We mentioned the museum scene. Okay,
all of mine are really weird. Some of my favorite thing about this movie is how everything is good. I love everything. There's something to remember from everything. Okay.
My favorite thing about this is how everything about it is my favorite thing.
Okay. And I won't even have to tell you all the scenes, but King of the Wicker People, when they're just, it's like it's Japanese actually.
Alexander Knox.
How do you know?
The comic relief reporter.
Love him.
I feel like that is
give Knox a grant.
You did journalism. I feel like that Alexander Knox is your muse.
Him and Arliss especially.
Especially in Arliss. I was thinking about Arliss the other day when I was watching this.
That's so good. And then he's just like, how do you know it's Japanese? Because I bought it in Japan. Oh, Bruce Wayne, you sure this time? And that connects back to that other scene, which is one of my favorites.
Yes.
When him and Vicky are at eating the soup or whatever, and he's like,
oh yeah.
She's like, you ever been in this room before? And he's just like, I don't think I've ever been in this room.
Yeah.
You want to get out of here?
And then you know what? I think the fact that, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but that Michael Keaton had done he has comedy chops, and I feel like that allowed him to be way more like that scene in particular, like where he's just like kind of a funny, charming dude. Not everyone could pull that off, and I think he could pull it off because he had that range, and he's used to acting like a normal person.
But he's not like slapstick funny. You know what I mean? No. He's just charming.
And he's got range here, and you see like all of the him trying to be like the normal Bruce Wayne to him being like a truly damaged human being from what happened in front of his eyes to him just being this like this monolithic character of Batman. And I want to give an example of that after I also say my other favorite part is like a sack of old potatoes covered in margarine, nursing a sprained knee. Sorry, that's just one of my favorite things. And I definitely steal like a sack of old potatoes covered in margarine. Like whenever I bust my ass or something. You tell your friends
that, just like Justin tells his friends.
Yeah, see, I think half my personality is this movie. So another like a part of the movie where he's Bruce Wayne that I really like is when you have like the mime Joker at the city hall or whatever at the courthouse.
Yeah.
And like he just like he notices he's connected it. This is Jack Napier. And he's just walking towards him, and he even gets like the bullet through the coat, and like even ignoring Vicky and everything, and it just like kind of the look on his face, like such a good scene and range from Mike Keaton. We're on a Mike Keaton basis.
You and Mike.
Yeah, me and Big Mike.
Close personal friend Mike Keaton.
Mikey Keats, as I call him.
Now, I just want to, on the note of Michael Keaton Batman, I couldn't give less of a shit about that Flash movie, but I do know that he's in it as Batman.
Yeah, I did watch that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Did you? Okay.
That's all I want to say about it.
Okay. We love Michael Keaton as Batman. That's where we need to end this.
I've got stuff. He wasn't wrong. Nothing he did was wrong.
No.
Well, Michael Keaton doesn't. He doesn't do
if he
wrong
does it, it's
things.
not wrong.
That's right.
Don't go chasing waterfalls.
There was too many Ezra Millers, and
I'm tired of this sound coming out of this pipe.
And then they kind of Luke Skywalker Batman. Anyway, let's go to happier trails.
Okay, let's talk about the Prince soundtrack of this movie. You've got the look. You've got the Tim Burton. It's spooky without being horror. It's a noir movie. And then you've got a soundtrack by Prince.
And you get a little bit of it in the movie too. Speaking of the museum scene.
I know the museum scene. Yeah.
Which that song makes the whole thing, right? Which earlier this year
it will be the outro song. No worries.
This year, for the 35th anniversary, they're doing orchestra shows where you get to go watch the movie, and they have the orchestra from the city play. So earlier in January, I went and did this. So with this scene, like they have this version of Batman up that doesn't have the score on it or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, during this scene, they didn't have the actual Prince music on it. So it was like the scene of them doing it with zero music. So there's just like... and then like slapping the paint on the hands on the paint and stuff, and just like all their weird noises. And like the crowd was just like yucking it out because of all the guttural noises coming from the screen with no music.
You would think the orchestra would play Party Man.
I guess they didn't have the sheet music for it because they were up there just like, I don't know.
They just... Man...
I can't believe that. I would have felt robbed. That would have been the highlight of the film for me, is going to see an orchestra play Party Man.
I mean, they played the score and all those parts, which is the majority of the movie, but this part...
What about the parade scene? Because there's another Prince song in the parade scene at the end.
Honestly, I don't remember. I don't remember if it happened. I don't remember another thing where something happened, but that was some awkward... That was an awkward scene with no music behind it whatsoever. We're just all staring there.
Just the thought of it, just a lot of...
that whole scene is wild though, and the song does help make it, especially with the guy with the big boombox on his shoulder.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. It's great. It's really
What does he say? Let's make some art. Is that what he says at the beginning when he comes in? He's like, Lawrence, and he hits the.
and then we get a Francis Bacon painting, which is one of my favorites of all time.
Oh yes, the one that he saves.
Yep, and he's like, I actually kind of like this one, Bob. Actually got to see that at the Art Institute of Chicago back in like 2011 or something.
Awesome.
You didn't splatter paint on it or anything, did you?
No, I just like, I was so stoked because I didn't even know it was there.
That's awesome.
But I was stoked. Like, you see, Batman even spreading the love for Francis Bacon.
As we're talking, I keep trying to think, oh, that's my favorite Joker quote. And there's too many. There's too many.
And every time you're wrong, because there's more.
Like, I keep thinking, no, it's definitely, I get agreeing again and again.
And again. And again.
And then I think, no, it's Boss Grissom was a thief and a terrorist. On the other hand, he had a tremendous singing voice. Which is an underrated line. We've already mentioned this town needs an enema.
That one's good. The whole scene where he's cutting out pictures of Vicky, like everything he says there is just like...
Yes.
Now, Vicky Vale, was this a sexual awakening for either of you?
That was.
Or were you already awakened and this just?
Yeah, I'd seen Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Eddie'd seen some things.
Yeah, Eddie'd seen God knows what.
I was supposed to close my eyes during those scenes, but I need to know what was beyond the veil, you know? I didn't understand it, but I liked it.
He has a curious mind.
That's right. Yeah, we've really not talked much about, the rest of the cast of this movie, but we did have Kim Basinger. We did have Pat Hingle. What else was Pat Hingle in?
I only know him as Commissioner Gordon from these Batman movies.
He's been in other things, and I see him, I'm always like, Commissioner Gordon.
There he is. Yeah, we mentioned Jack Palance as Carl Grissom. We haven't mentioned Bob the Goon, my personal favorite character. Bob the Goon. Also, another maybe my favorite Joker quote when he kills Bob. Spoiler alert.
Gun.
Bob Gun.
For years, and I don't know why this is, I thought his name was Bob Lagoon.
Bob Lagoon.
Like the goon, but in like French.
Lagoon.
I don't know why.
Legume? Like a legume?
But there's a
Robert Legume.
But yeah, I do love Bob. I love all the different thugs. The one with the ninja blades.
A good gang, yeah, and they all have satin jackets, which I really appreciate.
Dude, I found one of those on eBay. I might be rocking one of those soon.
Now this movie made a shit ton of money.
Yeah,
you said that this was, this was like, even before the whole everybody owned it on home video. This movie made a fuck ton of money.
For the time and adjusted for inflation, I bet it's bananas.
So here's an interesting thing I read. Are you all familiar with the concept of Hollywood accounting and how, money?
Maybe, but I don't know. It's called that.
Money ends up getting lost in the process all the time because of Hollywood accounting, and things end up costing a lot more than they probably actually did. So this movie. On a budget of, in 1989, on a budget of $48 million, made, they worldwide grossed $412 million. And to this day, on the books, it still says, Warner Brothers still says this movie did not make a profit. Like,
that's wild.
Technically, this movie has never made a profit. But
merchandising is another story, and there was a Bat everything, and kids were buying it. I can assure that.
So it absolutely did, but like on the books, it didn't.
That's insane.
Yeah, and this also directly led to the creation of Batman the Animated Series, which we've spent a whole episode talking about. Not with you, Eddie. This is a complete sidebar, but just so you all know, I am currently rewatching Batman the Animated Series all the way through. I got that sweet Blu-ray set.
It's so good looking.
Oh man, it's so good. I love that show. we've done a whole episode on that, so go find that if you want to hear me talk about Batman the Animated Series.
And it shares a theme song.
But Batman the Animated Series would not have happened if Batman 89 hadn't happened. And of course there's sequels, but I don't want to talk too much about the sequels because frankly all of them deserve their own full episodes. And I think Eddie should come back for all the Batman episodes if you'd be willing.
I saw all of them in theaters. And there's a story to go with all of them.
I saw actually 89 is the only one I did not see in the theater.
That's wild.
You were 4.
I was 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents, I probably went to the movies probably a little early for my age, but I think I was already connected to the TV, you know.
Now, as
I
have mentioned
chill.
on the show before that the first movie I ever saw in the theater was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So this was the year I started going to movies. Mm-hmm. But Batman.
But I do imagine our parents probably thought this was too dark for you, and they probably wanted to be watch it first before they. You know what I mean?
Because I saw it it wasn't long before. Because I've been watching this movie for as long as I can remember. You know,
I'm sure that they rented it and probably watched it and then let you watch it.
Yeah. Apparently, parents do that.
It's super weird.
I'm noticing regular parents, as my sister raises my nephew and niece, my nephew's gone through dinosaurs are the greatest thing ever, and I was like, cool. Can I watch Jurassic Park with him? She's like, that'll scare the shit out of him, Eddie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? It's it's just Jurassic Park.
I mean,
you're he is definitely going to see worse on the internet, so we might as well just let him watch Jurassic.
Yeah, I mean he's 6, just turned 6.
Oh yeah, he's seeing more things. He's seeing worse things for his psyche on YouTube probably. So just let him watch Jurassic Park. Yeah,
I think so, but
that's fair.
Apparently he'll freak out.
Yeah, apparently.
So, do we have anything else we want to mention before we wrap up this conversation? Eddie, what do you got?
I got a question for the both of you. Do you think they made the wrong move in killing the Joker at the end? Should they have kept him alive? Was that a mistake for the franchise, seeing how big it ended up being? And how awesome is that thing in his pocket at the end that they get out after he's dead and just implanted into the concrete, and it's just the joke box says I was like, I want to buy one of those. Where do they sell them?
The answer to your first question is I don't think it was a mistake necessarily, but they could have left him alive. I don't think you were ever going to get Nicholson back for another one. Probably, so it probably would be best just to, and I don't imagine they were thinking we're going to go back to this anytime soon on the big screen.
Yeah.
And to answer your second question, very awesome.
I still want one.
Me too.
I think now we tend to, the idea, I think, of, killing off the villain entirely and not leaving some sort of, but they could come back, mid-credits scene, I don't think we do that very much anymore, so I actually kind of appreciate that they did just kill him off and not just, put him in Arkham Asylum and then, he's gonna come back. I don't know. I think it's fine. There's so many... I love Batman Returns, so, I'm glad that was, the Penguin show. And that...
No, I was just going to say, and this Batman doesn't really have that line. That's something we didn't talk about from, the Nolan verse or, from the comics these days is, this Batman will kill you. He had guns in his car in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And bombs. He killed some people. A decent amount.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Move past it.
So, there was that. So I guess, it was established he could kill people. And not that he really killed Joker on purpose. He even tried to help him up at one point with the false hand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And last question. How bummed are you that with how bad The Flash was and everything with DC these days, that the Michael Keaton movies got canceled? Because he was going to be the Batman of the DCEU moving forward. Which there was a Batgirl movie that famously got deleted as a tax write-off, but we were also going to get a Batman Beyond series, which is awesome, with Michael Keaton as that Batman, and Batman Beyond is pretty badass.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to dwell too much on what they've taken from us because it's a lot.
I still hope it happens. I think there's room out there for that as an Elseworlds movie.
Sure. Yeah, no, I would love to see that. I would love to see it.
Yeah, DC seems to be doing better on the small screen. To say.
And they're trying to figure it out now. Everything's been paused after last year, which was pretty awful year for them in general. But they have their first movie that relaunches the whole. They're going away with the DCEU, and then they're having the DCU. So it's going to relaunch with the new Superman film. Should be interesting.
Yeah.
But you'll still have Robert Pattinson in his other universe.
Just a quick question at the end. Did you all ever watch Gotham? The show Gotham?
I watched the first 2 seasons of it, maybe, and then I caught, other stuff. It was a little too off the rails for me.
Okay. More inspired by Batman, then?
Kinda, and then, they did some interesting stuff sometimes, I thought, but, and I thought the guy that played the Riddler was pretty good, and the guy that played Penguin was pretty good.
Yeah.
But the thing, they couldn't use Joker either, so they made it this bald looking guy. It was the redheaded guy from Shameless, that actor.
Oh yeah.
He played him. Go look up the pictures. It's weird. It's gnarly.
Interesting. Well. All right. Well, I think we ought to induct this into the Movie Club Hall of Fame, and I'm going to leave it to you fellas, because this is really your bread and butter here.
Eddie, give us your final thoughts on Batman 89.
I think it's one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. It brought forth an era of from pulp to celluloid, and it's been a good thing for film. I think it set a standard for a long time. And if you were a kid back then and you didn't like Batman, I don't know what you were doing, man. It was the coolest thing in the world for a long time. At least for me, it's still the coolest thing in the world.
And with that, I will officially induct Batman into the Cool Kids Movie Club Hall of Fame. Hey, I forgot to ask. This is a question for both of you guys before we wrap this up. Uh-huh. And have you guys ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Not recently.
Okay, but you have.
I bet you ask all your prey that.
I just like the sound of it. Amy, hit us with a couple plugs.
Plugs. Yeah, if you want to follow us on the social medias, check us out at Cool Kids Club Pod over on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter. Also on Threads on Instagram, which is just Twitter for Instagram. You can also check us out on Facebook if you search for Cool Kids Club Podcast. Justin has started a new endeavor, and I urge you to go check out on Instagram at Cool Kid Clubhouse to check out his personal clubhouse.
Yeah, my room of mental illness.
That's a good. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna steal that.
Childless millennials room of mental illness.
I can't let an episode go by without saying thank you to Brian Hey Guys Wakefield. BrianWakefieldMusic.com for our theme. Brian Wakefield, who is the producer of Blue Bard Cage and has made many, many podcasts with myself and our very special guest, Eddie. I almost said your last name and doxed you.
Love you, Brian.
I would have bleeped it. I'd have bleeped it for you, bud.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Eddie, thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
I appreciate you, man. That was great. I love talking Batman, and I always love seeing you all.
Same.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. You really added something to the conversation that I probably wasn't going to be able to.
I could give you 7 parts to this podcast.
Yeah, spoiler, this is just part 1. We'll be back in 2 weeks with part 2.
Yeah. And then we're not even Eddie's coming back for all the sequels. That's already been established.
Yeah.
Can't
Obviously. Well, thank you so much, Eddie, for being on here with us. And thank you to everybody listening. And I guess, until next time, does anybody have any advice? Anything that our listeners should do with themselves?
Well, I would say I have two pieces of advice.
Sure, okay, please.
The first is stay cool.
Always.
The second is never rub another man's rhubarb.